Hey y'all, hope we're in the frame
Hi.
here. Lady here and
This is Kaminoko,
and
or Inquisitive Seamstress.
yes. And me and my lovely cousin are bringing you a series here we're gonna call Con Going 101. So if you're ever interested in going to like a convention, whether it be anime, comic book, sci-fi, whatever the case may be, we're your guides. So
We should talk about our qualifications.
yes.
My
You start.
first convention, I've been going to fan conventions since 1999.
I'm like 2004. I started going like in college.
Yeah. And I've gone to conventions most of since that time. I've gone almost every year.
Lies.
And then the last 10 years I've been going to 4 or 5 cons a year. So
Yeah, I actually have to go back and retract my statement. My very first con, I was 16 years old. It was a Star Trek convention, Slayton Fedora. I don't even know if it's still around. I got to meet Robert Picardo. It was awesome. I have pictures. I'll probably include them below, but yes. So yeah, anyways, but we're just here to after we're seasoned in this, we came across some things that, young people, God, I feel old.
young people.
Boomer over here.
So basically, if this is your first time going to a con, or maybe you went to a con and you had a bad experience, like you got sick or you spent all your money and you didn't have money for bills or something, we're going to tell you how you can have a better time and not be broke and not get sick. Yes, so if you haven't been to many cons or it's your first one, this video is for you.
All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is probably budgeting. Well, first you got to find the con. So you can go, there's a website, I think it's like animecons.com or conventions.
Assuming you don't already, have a friend who can tell you, if you don't already have friends who are like, you should go to such and such con.
Yes, and if you have friends, the better. It makes the room cheaper.
But yes, it's easy enough to look online to find a con that's at least hopefully within a few hours drive of where you live.
And also, I would like to mention, maybe if you're not used to cons, start with a small local con. Like we went to Southern Maryland Comic Con. That was only like $10. It's a one-day con. But that's so you can kind of experience what it's like without, breaking the bank. As, when we were poor, struggling college students, that was kind of like my big vacation for the year when I wasn't going home for Christmas or Thanksgiving. I would go to a con, and maybe one or two cons a year, but that's all I could afford, after paying my rent and all my bills and everything. So you can start with a small local con. They usually may run we're going to SetsuCon. We're going to be filming this so y'all can see us get ready for a con. It's a local small con. Usually the smaller cons will cost less for the whole weekend. We're planning to go to KatsuCon only one day, but that's usually runs about $65 a day or $85 for the whole weekend. But KatsuCon's massive. So if you're shy and don't like a lot of people, start with a small con. So basically, you just got to budget. Make sure all of your bills are paid. Okay, pay your rent, pay your gas, pay your car note. Make sure your bills are paid. Take care of yourself and your financials before you invest in this, because you're gonna have to budget for things like rooms. You get a hotel room. It's more cost efficient if you go with a bunch of people in a room. Yeah, you may be sleeping on the floor in a sleeping bag, but if you pay $20, $25, $50 for the whole weekend just for the room alone, you're winning. So what I usually do, or what I have done in the past, is I would front the bill for the room, and then my friends would just pay me back. Make sure you have friends that you trust that will pay you back. But whatever money I made, they paid me back. I use that as my spending money for the con. And it's easy to get overwhelmed.
Transportation. And if it's in a city, parking.
Yes, because sometimes I know for Animazement, before, when it was still in Cary, it was actually in a hotel. You could either stay at the hotel or one across the street. NecoCon, I usually stay at a hotel that's literally 2 blocks from the convention center. You could just walk there. Animazement now has moved to the Raleigh Convention Center, and usually to get a decent hotel, because usually the convention hotels, they'll usually run a rate or something, so the cost is less. But those book up so fast, you may have to book them out like a year in advance.
Yeah.
But you may have to get something that's farther away. Like the last time I went to Animazement, my hotel was like 20 minutes, and we had to drive there. And then once we drove there, we had to find parking. Parking was like, I think it was like $10 for the day or something. It wasn't too bad. Yeah. But you need to factor in that. Food is another thing.
So housing, transportation, possibly parking, food. Usually if there's a Walmart in the area and your room has a microwave or a little mini fridge, get a room with the mini. And get the hotel with the free continental breakfast, because that takes care of a whole meal right there. Make sure you have we'll touch on that later about what all you need to do. We just want to cover an overview of all the different type of things you may have to pay for. Also, every con has a marketplace or dealer's room, or it's going to be called, it has different names, but you're going to want to spend money in there. Just assume you're going to want to spend a good chunk of money in there, and don't be like, oh, I'm just going to have $20 for the dealer's room, because you may end up dipping into your food money.
Yes.
And that's a good way to get
Yes. And we will actually cover the dealer's room and traveling in the next video. But this is just to give y'all an overall view of the other videos we'll be making for this series.
Like, if you've never gotten a hotel room before, just the basics of how that works.
You can actually squeeze the max amount of people in one room. I think the most I've had is probably like 8 people in a room. It can be done as long as you don't violate the fire code. So, just plan for that. So make sure whoever you're sharing a bed with, you're okay with sharing a bed with this.
When I first started going to conventions, I would bring a camp pad and a sleeping bag.
Yeah, a sleeping bag.
And I could save a whole lot of money because I was in a room with like 6, 7, 8 people.
So like if you have a room that costs like $400 and you split it up with, I cannot do math, but if you split it between 6 or 8 people, you're only paying like what, $30 roughly for like the whole weekend. It's not bad.
Yeah. Hotel rates will vary depending on where your convention is, but
so usually
it's going to save you a lot of money.
Yeah. So, and another thing, don't get the cheapest room. I know for NecoCon, I love staying at the Comfort Inn. It got changed to Best Western, but it's like my favorite hotel. I remember one year I was not able to get a room there, and I had to stay across the street at it was like the next hotel over was like the Days Inn. It was not the same.
Get a hotel, not a motel.
Yes. And if you
don't want to go home with roaches
or
bed bugs in your bag, because that's going to cost you a lot of money down the line.
You won't be happy. And also, make sure, like, I always bring Lysol. They do clean the rooms, but pandemic times, even before, I've always been kind of like other people's beds and sheets. I sleep in a hoodie because I'm like, I don't want to touch the sheets or anything. I'm weird. But I bring Lysol.
Yes.
And, clean your room again. Spray the Lysol, kill the germs. If you're sick, I remember my first AWA, I was on the plane and I flew, and somehow I got sick. Really sick. I bought a box of masks. This is before masking became a thing. This was pre-pandemic times. The before times.
The before times.
I had to wear a mask because I was so sick. So yeah, prepare for that too. There used to be several cons there. It was like, I don't know. I would just get sick. It wasn't like I wasn't sleeping enough or drinking enough water. Make sure you stay hydrated. Bring all of your medication.
Yes.
Take vitamins. Okay.
Hydrate.
Vitamin C.
And I think we'll talk about this more later, but eat at least 2 meals a day.
Yeah, we'll talk about the food and the traveling.
But I want to circle back to the hotel, because literally if you've never gotten a hotel room before, I just want to make some notes about the process. In my other life, I was an executive assistant for a while, so I learned a couple of things about getting hotels. You may get a supposedly cheaper rate on one of those websites like Expedia or Budget
Yeah.
but sometimes there are issues with those.
Mm-hmm.
So I always recommend look at those websites, see who seems like they have the best deal. Always look at how far away the hotel is from the convention, because if it's 5 miles away, that's gonna suck for you when you're coming back from the con at like 2 a.m.
And especially if you don't have a car.
Because things happen. Maybe at the last minute you have to work, or if it's a winter con, you could get snowed out and not be able to get there. So don't get the non-refundable rate, even though it seems cheaper.
Yes.
Just reserve the room. You have to give them a card to reserve the room, but you don't have to pay right away. You don't have to pay until you check in.
And you can usually cancel like within like 24 hours.
Usually it's
something like that.
Read the fine print. I know it's boring, but read the fine print, because sometimes it's 2 days.
Okay.
For some hotels. So that's just another thing to think about. Yeah, so what I always do is I check on one of those group sites, and then I go to the actual hotel website and reserve directly from the hotel. That's always usually the best thing to do. You can also actually sign up for free. You can usually get a member rate that's a little bit cheaper if you actually take a few extra minutes to sign up for like a rewards program. They're usually completely free for hotels, so it's totally worth it for you to sign up. Even if you only use it once, it'll save you a few dollars.
Yeah, and I also want to touch on that. I used to work for Marriott, and a lot of like Expedia and Priceline and all those sites, they'll charge a commission fee. So the rate seems great, but sometimes you'll end up paying more. And also, I've done this a couple times. Like, I'll go online and the online rate will be cheaper, but then I would call the actual hotel and they would offer me an even better rate. You can do that as well. Yeah, and also I have several hotel rewards. I used to be a military spouse and we would travel everywhere. So I'm like, we're staying in all these hotels. I'm getting all the points. And sometimes, sorry, I just wanted to cycle back to when I first started going to NecoCon, I would just go ahead and make my reservation early. So like I would check in, and like my last day or check out, I'm like, can I reserve this for next year just so I have my spot? And I know one year I think I waited like 6 months before the con to make it. And I called them up and they were like, oh, you stayed here last year. We'll give you the convention rate from that year, because they wanted us to come back to the hotel.
Nice. Yes. I was going to say that too.
So yeah,
at least 6 months ahead, especially if you're doing the flexible or whatever they call it, where you're not actually paying anything right away. It does not hurt you at all to reserve the room 6 months or a year ahead.
Yep.
Just put it on your calendar or something so that you remember to cancel it if you can't go later.
Flying, I always fly Southwest. You get your bags for free.
2 check bags.
2 check bags. Now I have a story. When I was stationed over on the West Coast, we were coming back to the East Coast to go to Animazement, and we were bringing full cosplays. I'm talking like full wooden swords, shields. My ex-husband had this huge duffel bag that weighed at least like 80 pounds. Yeah. We threw that mofo on the plane for free. It was great. It was great. So we'll touch on traveling and packing in the next video, actually. And like the first day of con and what to expect. But that's pretty much the basics, planning, plan, budget, because there's going to be like a lot of unforeseen expenses. Yeah. And I guess we'll touch on food on the next video too. But yeah. Okay, anything else, Kami?
Okay, one thing to consider is that if you're traveling somewhere that's not close to where you live, or like if you live in a small town or a rural area and you're going to a big city, keep in mind that food is more expensive. Like, you could literally go to like a fast food restaurant and the food will be more expensive. Right. Or you go to the grocery store and the food is more expensive for the same thing.
Right. So you might as well just buy it at your hometown and then go.
If you're driving, that's something that you can do.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, usually that's what we did when we went the last AWA I went to. We had a little kitchenette, like we actually have like a microwave and a little fridge. We just went to Walmart.
Yep.
Bought food for the week. I made sandwiches. We still went out to eat, like we had ramen and drinks, of course. But like, You know, we got cookies, snacks, all the things.
You could bring like a hot pot or an Instapot.
Crock pot, yep.
Yeah,
Oh, I
crock
forgot
pot.
to do
That's
make
what I
crock
meant.
pots anymore. So ancient over
They
here.
do make crock pots. They still make them. It's a great way to feed yourself cheaply.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So the next video we're gonna do will cover traveling, in the first day of the convention and what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we forgot to talk about badges. So when you're
Yes.
registering, it depends on the con. You can either do a badge for the whole weekend, and some of them either you can do day by day. So let's say you have to work Friday, but you're off Saturday and Sunday. You could buy a badge just for
Right.
Saturday and Sunday. Like Katsucon, we're only going for one day.
Yeah.
They do that. Sometimes it's more expensive because you have to pay by the day, and it's cheaper just to get the badge for the whole weekend. But you know, just plan. You know, just tell your job. I used to tell my job as soon as I found out when the convention date was. I'll be like, "Hey, I need this day off," like 6 months in advance.
Yes. 6 months or a year, like.
Yeah. So just be like, I am not working this weekend. So make sure you plan for that. Pay all your bills. We said that earlier. Pay all your bills.
Also, conventions, usually the rate gets higher as you get closer to the event.
Yes.
So if I would say as soon as you get the day off from work, go on the website and buy your badge.
Yes, and also if you don't think you can afford the badge, you can also volunteer to be staff. That'll help you get in the con for free. You'll have to work. You may be like a gopher getting people food or coffee or water or whatever, but you know, hey, at least you get in the con for free. Also, like, we're part of a group, and we've gone as press to a con, and we just, you know, filmed a couple of panels, and but we got to go to the con for free. It was pretty cool.
Sometimes you can also get a reduced badge or a free badge if you volunteer to staff a table for like a if you have a local anime club.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yes,
some kind of fan club,
Yes.
depending on what kind of convention it is. A lot of times they will offer that to their members, so that's another way that you can get into the convention free or cheaper.
Anyways, so in the next video we'll cover the traveling there and the first day of con, dealer's room, all of that good stuff. So we'll see y'all in the next video. All right, bye.